If you've ever, you know, stared at a complex first-degree algebraic equation and just felt that wave of frustration, you are not alone.
Oh, absolutely. It's probably the biggest psychological barrier in math education.
Right. Algebra feels like this secret code that only certain people are allowed to crack.
And we teach students the rules, like switch the sign when you move the term, but we rarely explain why that rule exists. We don't give them a mental model to make it stick.
Well, today, we are diving into a resource that literally turned that rule into an epic fantasy novel.
It's incredible.
We're exploring A Guerra dos Tornos, which translates to The War of the Terms. It's an educational resource from Sergio M. at Cherry at Caludu, which was accepted for publication by Casa das Ciencias back in 2018.
And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this story. We're talking dragons, kings, cursed rivers. But this narrative isn't just, decoration.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly mapped step-by-step algorithm for solving these equations. We're going to reveal the magic formula hidden in this fantasy world and, maybe more importantly, understand why it was such a huge success in the classroom.
Okay, let's get into it. Because if this system works, it solves one of the oldest classroom frustrations, that feeling that math is just arbitrary.
Right.
So we start with the world building, the kingdom of the Tornos.
So for centuries, the kingdom was in perfect peace. This was all thanks to a ruler named King Pandarix.
And he had a magic formula.
He did. His solution to all potential problems was, well, to lock them in a massive chest and sink it to the bottom of the river.
Just hide the variables, problem solved.
Exactly. The math was solved and peace reigned.
But that, of course, couldn't last forever.
No. The peace was shattered by the terrible Mago Incognitus. The source says he was heartbroken.
Oh, there's a backstory.
A great one. His beloved Solutionix ran off with a conjunctex.
That's a fantastic little nod to mathematical relationships.
Isn't it? So he decides to get revenge on the entire kingdom by opening the chest, unleashing all the problems.
And this is where our variable $6 comes in.
It is. As new inhabitants appeared, Mago Incognitus left his personal mark on them. The dreaded $6, or as they call it, the Ixis. Now the land is divided, and the inhabitants, called Termos, are in constant conflict.
And the physical manifestation of that conflict, that great divide, is this cursed river running right through the middle of the kingdom.
Which is literally the equal sign.
Wow.
It's what makes this so brilliant. The essential rule of algebra is established through geography.
The two banks of the river are the two members of the equation.
The first member on the left bank, the second on the right, they're in total discord, but they have to be perfectly balanced by that river.
That's so powerful because the number one hurdle in early algebra is that idea of transposition. That an operation reverses when you move a number.
Precisely. And this story makes that abstract concept physical. The core rule, which is controlled by the new ruler, King Equalus.
The equal sign himself.
The equal sign himself. The rule is that whenever a termo crosses to the other side of the river, their fundamental operation reverses.
So addition becomes subtraction.
Multiplication becomes division. The river forces the operation to invert. It's just a law of nature in this kingdom.
It's beautiful. And every year, they hold the race of the terms to try and solve the kingdom's current problem and find that lost magic formula.
And King Equalus is ready to start this year's race. The challenge is a complex first-degree equation. It's got the dreaded parentheses and fractions.
Which in this world are different kinds of vehicles with, varying numbers of wheels?
Exactly. So on the left bank, the first member, you have two main groups.
Okay.
First is a single Ixis, our variable $6 on a vehicle with 4 wheels.
So $6 divided by 4. Got it.
The second group is the termo mysterio, the mystery term. This is the part with the parentheses.
Why is it a mystery term?
Because you have two dragons outside, wielding fire, and they're holding captive an Ixis and a lonely warrior who's marked with a negative symbol.
Okay, that's a lot to visualize.
And this whole group is on a vehicle with only one wheel.
And what about the right bank, the second member?
A little simpler. It's a group of 5 warriors, our constant term on a vehicle with 2 wheels. So 5/2.
So we have a fractional equation with grouping symbols. I can already feel the student anxiety.
Right. And the terms decide their strategy. They have to start with that tricky termo mysterio. This lines up perfectly with the first step of the magic formula, which is, of course, the distributive property.
And this is where the action starts.
It is. The 2 dragons, they use their fire, and they multiply their prisoners inside that grouping symbol.
So they're literally distributing the fire.
2 times everything inside the parentheses.
Yeah.
The single ixis inside instantly becomes 2 ixis.
Okay.
And then the dragons turn their fury on that lonely warrior, the one with the negative symbol, and they multiply his negative state. He becomes 2 negative warriors.
So the expression $2 by 1 1 is visually transformed into 2 by 22 dollars.
Yes. The essence of multiplying a factor across an expression is perfectly captured by those dragons. Their fire has to touch every single prisoner equally.
That's such a huge shift from just being told, distribute the factor. The story gives you a reason.
So step 1 is done, the parentheses are gone, but the race is still, bogged down by all these different wheels.
Right, you have terms on 1 wheel, 2 wheels, 4 wheels. It's chaos.
It's an equation that can't be solved yet, which brings us to step 2 of the magic formula. Kin equalis has to impose order.
Through equivalence.
Exactly. The terms are not standardized, which is just another way of saying we need to find a common denominator.
And his decree is simple. Separate the terms and put everything on wheels. In this case, 4 wheels is the largest vehicle size, so that becomes the standard.
So the single ixis, who's already on 4 wheels, he gets to stay put.
But the others have to change.
This is where the real insight is. Remember the 2 ixis and 2 negative warriors the dragons made? They were on 1 wheel. To be equivalent on 4 wheels, their value, their strength, has to be multiplied by 4.
So those 2 x's become 8 x's, and the 2 negative warriors become 8 negative warriors.
Or octus, as they're called. They look different, they're stronger, but their value is equivalent.
And the same thing happens on the right bank.
Just so, the 5 warriors were on 2 wheels. To get on 4 wheels, they have to double their strength. They become 10 warriors, or decise.
So now every single term is standardized on 4 wheels. They're ready for the next step.
And this is a huge pedagogical moment. Students usually see finding a common denominator as like an extra annoying step.
But here, it's the king making the race fair.
It is. And that standardization leads directly to step 3, the magical resolution. We still have all these wheels, and they have to disappear. So King Equalis calls upon the Mago Feticero, Reducidex.
The magician of reduction. I love it.
Reducidex is the hero of simplification. He steps forward and pronounces the magical words.
Which is the equivalent of multiplying both sides by the common denominator.
It is. He says, Mesmix denominatorix dot desoperasix.
And then what?
And instantly all the wheels vanish. The crowd is amazed. What was this confusing fraction-fill equation is now clean. It's a straightforward linear equation.
That one moment shows the power of simplifying the problem.
And with the wheels gone, the terms can finally focus on separating, which is step 4 of the magic formula, gathering like terms.
The ixis terms have to unite on the left, and the constants have to unite on the right.
So on the left bank, the single ixis that was there from the start embraces the 8 isis that came from the dragon term. They combine their forces.
To make 9 total ixis, the left side is now just 9 by his door.
But now we have to deal with the constant terms. Those 8 negative warriors, they realize they are on the wrong side. They're outnumbered.
So they have to retreat.
They run towards the second member, the right bank. And here we see the rule of the cursed river in action.
They're crossing the equal sign.
They cannot keep their operation. They must reverse. As the 8 negative warriors cross, they magically transform into 8 positive warriors.
So -8 becomes +8. That transposition rule just visually and narratively resolved.
It's the hardest lesson, made simple. Those 8 positive warriors join the 10 warriors already waiting on the right side.
And they unite to become 18 warriors.
So the entire race, this whole complex story, has been stripped down to its essence. 9 Isis equals 18 warriors.
9 ixis equals 18 warriors.
And this brings us to the final pivotal action. Step 5. Find the chiefs of the question.
The king provides the final simplification.
He does. King Equalis pronounces the final division. If these 9 Isis equal 18 warriors, then logically 1 Isis must equal 2 warriors. The narrative says there's this moment of silence, just the sheer weight of the discovery. The king and queen verify the result. They confirm the solution was found.
And they declare that this 5-step sequence is the lost magic formula.
Peace reigns again because equivalence has been restored, and the people live equivalently ever after.
It's pure fantasy gold. But the context of its creation and its impact, that's maybe even more important.
I agree. This whole thing wasn't just some theoretical idea. The creator, Sergio M. at Chat.do, said it came from a simple student question that he realized he couldn't quite answer with the conceptual depth it deserved.
So it was a real pedagogical need that drove, 100 hours of creative effort?
100 hours! Think about that. He made this animated narrative on an iPad, and the source notes that 10 of those hours, a tenth of the entire project, were spent just designing the lettering for the title.
Wow,
Ugh.
that's real dedication. It shows a belief that the presentation, the narrative immersion, it matters just as much as the math itself.
And the goal wasn't just to entertain, it was to replace a confusing set of rules with a sequence of necessary logical actions. It's an algorithm wrapped in a heroic quest.
And the success metrics were not subtle.
No, that's the most compelling part of this whole story. Students who were consistently getting the lowest grades, what we'd call level 1 or level 2 performance,
Yeah.
they were suddenly able to solve complex first-degree equations, problems with parentheses and denominators, the very things the dragons and the wheels represented.
And the teaching method itself, it changes the student's role, right? It's not
Right.
passive.
Not at all. The teacher pauses the video at those key moments, when the dragons multiply the terms, when reduced x makes the wheels vanish.
And the students become mathematical journalists.
Exactly. In groups, they have to translate the action they just saw, the king's decree, the terms crossing the river, into formal mathematical symbols on the board.
They're decoding the allegory into the language of algebra.
By the time they're done, they've internalized that 5-step magic formula, and they can then apply those same steps to new problems. The source suggests you can do the whole thing in one 90-minute class.
45 minutes for the story, 45 for practice. The knowledge transfer is incredibly fast.
Ultimately, what this deep dive really shows is the absolute necessity of metaphor in education.
Yeah.
We saw that pure creativity, kings and dragons, and a cursed river can map perfectly onto these abstract, essential mathematical principles.
Is the distributive property, the common denominator, the rules of transposition.
It demonstrates that when the traditional sort of cold methods fail, a rich narrative can unlock understanding. It makes the abstract physical and emotionally engaging.
It proves that an algorithm is just easier to remember when it's tied to an epic sequence of events.
And you know, the creator, Sergio M. at Tirality mentioned at one point that he paused developing other narratives because of an excessive path.
An excessive path.
This one story took 100 hours of his time to create.
Which raises a really important question for anyone trying to communicate complex ideas.
Yeah.
You know, how much time should we invest in finding the right path, the perfect story, the engaging allegory, versus just teaching the established rules?
Because when those rules fail, that emotional engagement that a story provides can be the lever that fundamentally changes everything.
It really makes you wonder what other abstract concepts are just out there, waiting for their own King Equalus or Mogoan Incognitus to bring them roaring to life.